the next 10 years, what's the most radical change? What do you think?
Most radical change.
Most radical change.
So for me, it's I have to say, like, the one I've been following the closest is this Google Glass project, because I want a chance to be able to capture my entire day, sit down and be able to share what I want to share, either publicly or privately. And I feel like I miss so many different things that I see, or opportunities, or discussions, or and even if it's with my family or if it's with the world. But I'm really excited about that technology coming out. I mean, Chris has caught me on accident on live stream when I didn't know I was being live streamed.
What?
But can you imagine with Google Glass, like, you're gonna have to always be watching. I mean, thinking about what you're saying, because it's somebody's.
Yeah, but
capturing
it's
it.
even
Now
weirder. It's
you're
even
getting-
weirder than that, because I was at the Google I/O conference when they ran through that.
Oh, it's much more radical than
I
that.
think
That's
the
what I'm
weirder
excited
part
about.
of that is not what it does to the person who's volunteered to do that with their lives. It's all the people you have to talk to and how it's going to change the way they interact with you. It's all discoverable, and you don't necessarily want everything you say to another person.
So are you worried about
discoverable,
it?
right or wrong. I'm desperately worried.
You're really
about
worried
it.
about it.
You should worry about
I think
that now.
I think it would be a radical change. It's going to require lots of milestones in computing. We've already talked about the voluminous growth of data. There's going to be more need for spectrum to synchronize that data, because you're not going to be able to carry it all around with you. So the advances that'll lead to that, like advances in memory storage, CPU, wireless technology, that all could be enablers for this, which I'd see will increase at least tenfold in the next 10 years.
I mean, everything is transparent.
It's almost like everyone has to share or consent to being allowed to be recorded.
See, I think that's the bigger deal, is
Everyone-
consenting, the automatic consent.
Kind of weird to
Maybe
me.
mine's
I'm
less
actually
lofty.
wearing the glasses
I'd love
right
to see a point where we actually get to a cashless society of having this secure thing. You can walk into Starbucks. It doesn't even take out your pocket. They know who you are.
You can
I
do
mean,
that
you're
today.
halfway there,
You can
right?
do
Yeah,
that
we're getting
today.
there. But how
Do you
can we
use
actually?
that for Starbucks now?
Well, sure, but it's still that you're not walking in. They don't know who you are and what you want, right? And you just walk out the door. You still have to like pull up your app, and it's like, how do you actually get rid of this whole?
Near field communications,
Yeah.
if they become pervasive.
How do you create that
and the
secure enough that
applications
you
for
feel like
NFC.
I can walk in and it just takes care of it, right?
But I like that idea of the big data and the wallet, right? So, like, you can predict my routine now. You know that I go to Starbucks. You know which Starbucks I go to. You know I'm going to
Or
be there
you
at
know
what
it
time.
because you know by location or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever device, whatever access you're doing. You know where it is.
You know my habits.
You know your
basically.
habits, right?
You know what offers to send me.
Right.
I think a lot of things discussed here are transformative. I know for a fact, if you look at the data growth that we talked about, we did 0.9 zettabytes 2 years ago, 1.8 zettabytes last year, 2.4 zettabytes this year. We're talking literally 100 billion 32 gig surfaces or iPads stacked end to end, to take all that data in. And so that has two kind of outcomes for society. The first is our little puny brains, our lizard brains, our primordial brains can actually absorb or understand all this data. If your brain had to process all the data you collect in a given day, you would go insane. Our brains can't do it. And so the ability for systems to begin to understand the data we collect in digital as simply a proxy or a high definition representation of the physical world in which we live, that's actually, I think, what's going to be transformative.
Everything we want to measure seems to double all the time. If it's video, we want to go from standard definition to high definition. Everything's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We don't have any way to structure this data in such a way that the objects that are in this two-dimensional space become three-dimensional and searchable and all these other things. And you look at what Watson's been doing with IBM, and they're taking all this data, and they're actually being able to start to make, what appear to be pseudo-intelligent remarks out of it.
Absolutely.
Look, intelligence is in the eye of the beholder. This is the Turing test, right?
Right.
If everything you say sounds intelligent to me, indistinguishable from a human, I'm probably going to assume you're a human. If Watson, at some point, it hits some peak where it's not saying some completely ridiculously stupid things that undermine its ability to seem human, then I think tapping into what you just dreamed about, which is still my nightmare, actually becomes a useful reality for some people.
I totally agree. There's two things I want to mention about that. Watson was brilliant, firstly, because it actually wasn't on the web.
That's right.
When it was playing Jeopardy, it was actually a self-contained system.
That's right.
And so to really make Watson the next level of power, to give it the next level of power, it has to understand the physical world and all of its constraints. So when I ask, why isn't there a jaguar in this room, we all understand implicitly that doesn't make any sense. Our jaguars usually don't hang out in restaurants, especially nice ones. You couldn't get a car in the
animal or
door.
the car?
Exactly, right? That's their point, right? It's a classic example of NLP. And so I do believe the kind of constant broadcast of information, and especially as you look at the younger generation and how comfortable they are with broadcasting, frankly, ridiculous amounts of information onto the web, I think you're going to see a change in mores and a change. I think the radical thing in 10 years is in 10 years, there are things today which are taboo or which have mores that frown upon them in the society, which will be no longer taboo because you'll be able to see when I run a red light.
But how does technology accelerate that?
The fact that everything I do is now recorded for posterity and it can be viewed by everybody else makes me actually want to do things differently. You know, I think that's a fundamental change in society.
Changes your behavior.
Absolutely.
I'll take a little bit of a shift in here because I like the fact that you have this frictionless transaction stuff that goes on. I mean, that's a dream come true, right? Because that's kind of hard to do. Like, you got to whip out a wallet.
I mean, Google tried
you
to
got to
play
find
with
the
that a
plastic
bit,
card. Oh my gosh, I've got to, and it's really hard.
Totally a first world problem, but
Imagine
yes, I agree.
a phone that had no input device because it could use brainwaves to control it. And no longer do you have driver distraction from going to an input device. And I think in the next 10 years, we'll see huge advances in the way we interact with electronics that don't require your limbs or your eyes to do it, whether it be phones or your cockpit in your car or whatever. Or you can multitask in ways you never even thought of before. For the most part, I don't know if other people feel this way, but if someone actually remembers my name, I actually appreciate interacting with them a little more. I don't know why, but they remember my name, they went out of their way. Thankfully for them, they have a gift that some people don't have, and it's unfortunate. And so one of the big applications of an augmented reality type device like what Glass provides for is you never forget anyone's name. You walk up, it captures your face, you got face recognition, boom, hi Shauna, how you doing? I didn't know you from anyone, and all of a sudden it's pulling up your latest tweets and everything on Facebook, and I can act like I'm your best friend.
But I think that just speaks to the whole notion of offloading, right, which I think is an amazing thing. Even in school, my daughter, she's in school and they're not learning geography, and I'm like, well, why? That's interesting. You're not learning geography anymore. And this morning she said to me, well, Daddy, why would I want geography? I just go to your
maps,
exactly. So to watch, I mean, and I'm sure you have a 10-year-old, so you see how this works too. The offloading of things that we all had to memorize or learn or understand to be in silicon, basically. And at our house, there are devices everywhere, right? So there's tablets, there's surfaces, there's PCs, there's phones, there's many phones running. So there's always a screen nearby that she can run up and talk to, or touch or talk to. And so for her, this notion of not being able to know, not knowing something is almost inconceivable.
Right.
Because to
Well,
her,
no. But it's less important to know something, and it's more important to know how to
find it.
My
And
point
the next
though is that to
generation
her,
is going to know how to
everything-
find out things
everything-
better than we did.
Exactly. Yeah. So to her, to watch her actually formulate search queries is fascinating. Because she'll actually ask in natural language. She'll actually attempt to. I'm like, don't put what is. Drop that. We ignore those words anyway. Forget it. But to watch her interact with machines and systems like that, she expects a very natural interaction. But my point is that she has abandoned things that we all think are critical to understand, because I think she's expecting, or in her own
access to
mind,
it.
she's expecting, whether it's glass or other kind of wearable computing that we've seen out there, the ability to have these things at her fingertips.
The thing I'm most excited about for me is, what we're working on, which is this big data. Thinking about having a crystal ball in your hand where you can predict what the future prices of a product, where stock prices are going to go. And, retailers are changing prices all the time on everything that they're pricing us against. We don't know it though, but we can have in our hands the power to be able to fight back against them because we know what they're doing.